Welcome to Unit 11. This unit focuses on wishes, dreams and regrets, and how people make sense of the world, both the conscious and subconscious. Listen to people talking about what they've observed about their subconscious and their preferences for finding out about the unknown.
I sometimes daydream if I'm doing something like a work task that's not very involved, or if I'm walking somewhere I tend to daydream a bit. I think it's good to have a bit of creative space because when I have that kind of headspace I can more easily think about solutions to problems that I've been having or quicker ways to do things I struggle with.
I don't think I do it very often, just because usually I relax by reading and things like that if I'm on a train journey. But occasionally it's quite nice if you're bored or you've got some time on your hands just to kind of think about something nice and think about the future and things like that. Yeah, I think it's nice to just switch off a bit and imagine a little bit more rather than the sort of day-to-day boring work life and things like that. Just really get your imagination sort of going and think about other things.
Okay, I think dreaming is very important in the creative process, and I think all workplaces should incorporate dreaming or spaces for daydreaming and thinking outside the box, outside the square. And I think it's very important because I'm an academic and I spend a lot of my time thinking and writing and reading, and there's a certain amount of creativity that's involved in that, and so you need to be able to dream and to daydream and to find time to do that. Yeah.
Well, I daydream often during the day when I'm just tired, when I haven't had enough sleep. But scientists, they do say that it's better to daydream than to be on your phone, to spend time daydreaming instead. So I think it's quite important. You can get a lot of good ideas by daydreaming.
I think it's very important to daydream. I daydream quite often, and sometimes I even find myself kind of detached from reality sometimes. So I kind of tell myself, okay, you should really, but you're like here in the moment, so try to like live the moment too. I think that's really important at the same time. But I think it's nice to daydream, to have dreams and hopes and yeah.
I probably don't daydream enough. I do think it's useful. I think it's a very good thing to do, and in fact that's when you're probably at your most creative. You come up with all sorts of ideas and solutions. I sometimes daydream when sitting on a bus or something like that, and I'll think of something which I think, gosh, that's a brilliant idea, I must do that, and then of course I completely forget about it. So yeah, I think it's a great thing to do, but my life is quite busy, quite hectic really, so yes, I wish I had more time to stand and stare.
I like to do a lot of research. Obviously the internet's good, but I also like to watch documentaries and see what I can find at the library.
I usually go and look online, or sometimes go to the library and see if there's a book on the subject if I'm interested in it and want to know more.
Then I would say daydreaming, or I guess just taking time to think about it, not using my phone too much or watching TV, or maybe just go for a walk and think about it.
Well, I'd ask someone who knows something about the area, someone whose opinions I trust. That's probably the best way, yeah.
Well, I think it's very easy now because you can look it up on the internet, can't you, really? And just ask questions of, people's experiences and find out that way, and just look it up on the internet and try and take it from there, really.
Definitely, I like to research it online just because we have so much available to us in a second. But I do like to read books on topics that interest me as well, especially if there's something more specific. So.
Most people know that there are 5 main senses: sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch. And all of these senses are important in how we perceive the world. But what would it be like if you could hear colour or taste sounds? For some people, this isn't a hypothetical situation. People with synaesthesia experience this crossover of the senses all the time. Synaesthesia is a relatively common but harmless neurological condition where people make connections between their senses. Some synaesthetes, the name given to people with synaesthesia, associate letters or numbers with a specific colour. So the letter A might be red, or the number 1 might be blue. Others associate colours or shapes with sounds, and some even make connections with their sense of taste. Can you imagine what it's like to experience the world in this way?
I think it's very difficult. So I'm doing philosophy, and there's a famous article called "What is it like to be a bat?" So you've got to imagine what it would be like to see with your ears, essentially. And I think it's very difficult to do that. Maybe you could, although I'd find it very hard to.
Extremely busy. It's busy enough when we can just hear with our ears and see with our eyes and so on. So to be able to... And they're random, as far as I'm aware, they're completely random. So all of a sudden it will be a really horrid smell that you associate with something that should be really nice, you know. So I imagine it would be very, very confusing, and a bit like hearing voices or something like that. You would really have to have a lot of control to be able to concentrate. It would make concentration very difficult, I think.
I mean, it's quite hard to describe with words because it would be such a sort of sensory phenomenon. I guess it would have advantages in the sense that you could sort of program your memory to remember things using different cues. So, I mean, maybe something as simple as revising for exams, you could use different foods or different smells or senses in a way that you can't with just sort of words and diagrams alone. But yeah, it's very hard for me to imagine without having it myself.
Scientists have been aware of the existence of synaesthesia for over 200 years. But for a long time, they knew very little about the condition. But today, they can use neuroimaging to see how our senses stimulate our brain. The sensory cortex is the part of the brain that deals with the senses. Different areas of the sensory cortex are stimulated by different senses. Scientists believe that synaesthesia is caused by an unusual amount of connections between these areas. In the past, synaesthesia was thought to be extremely rare. But today, scientists believe between 1% and 4% of the population have the condition. These strange connections between senses all come under the term multisensory perception, and this is currently an intriguing area of scientific research. Professor Charles Spence is the head of the Cross-Modal Research Laboratory at Oxford University. He studies how multisensory perception affects the way we interact with the world, and how this can be exploited.
I'm an experimental psychologist working here at Oxford University, and I'm interested in the senses, in hearing and vision and touch, taste, pain, and how those senses get put together in people's heads. And in this building with a lot of neuroscience going on, which means we try and understand the rules that connect your eye to your ear to your nose to your mouth.
Professor Spence calls this multisensory stimulation or multisensory perception.
So multisensory stimulation or multisensory perception refers to the idea that we have 5 senses or perhaps more: hearing, vision, touch, taste and smell. And most of the time when we experience the world or products around us, they stimulate most, if not all, of the senses.
He believes we use multisensory perception all the time. When we're eating a meal or choosing a particular product in the supermarket. It is an important part of our everyday lives.
So take a lovely meal, and it's got to taste right, it should have the right aroma or smell, it needs to look visually appealing, the crunch, the sound should be right, as should the texture, the mouthfeel or the fattiness in the mouth. So all the senses are involved in the perception of food. And that maybe is the most multisensory of our experiences. But elsewhere, if I think about some sort of packaging or something, say this bottle here, it's got a certain weight, so that's got a tactile perception. It's got a feel of roughness, so that's kind of. It's also got a sound I can hear, a colour, and it'll have a smell. So all the senses are again being involved in my perception of this product and its packaging. And a lot of the work that we do with companies now is trying to help them enhance the multi-sensory appeal of what they're offering.
Professor Spence's team are working hard to improve our understanding of multisensory perception. A lot of this research is very useful for food businesses. Today, they are testing how different music can affect the taste of coffee.
We're looking at sort of synaesthesia, which is this mixing of the senses. People who see coloured numbers or days of the week are the ones you see on television. But we think that maybe we're all synaesthetes, kind of. So that when we give people in the lab downstairs different tastes, flavours, aromas, and we give them a choice of any instrument, any pitch of sound, just pick an instrument and a high note or a low note that goes with that taste. Say it's taste of coffee, or the smell of chocolate, or of raspberries. It sounds like a bizarre thing to do, and yet we've been doing it for years, and most of our subjects give reliable answers that are very similar to one another. So most people will say that sweet is high-pitched and probably a piano, whereas bitter tastes are kind of low-pitched and they're more brassy in nature. And when you find subject after subject who says the same thing, then you can use those insights to try and create soundtracks that synesthetically match the tastes of food.
We perceive the world through our senses. Everything we experience through our sense of touch, taste, smell, sight, or hearing. Therefore, a better understanding of how the senses work and how they work together will lead to a better understanding of the world we live in.